Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video, now that we know a bit more of the detail, I'd like to discuss what is and isn't in the trade deal which Starmer and Trump presented to the world yesterday, along with a statement made by a government minister in the House of Commons early evening which clarified some points. Put simply, despite a lot of misreading of the statement, it is, as predicted, setting us up very nicely for a good agreement with the EU now, as well as saving jobs in the car industry. Beyond that, doesn't do a lot. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So first thing to note is that the deal is not actually complete as such. Now, this was being reported ahead of yesterday's statement. We haven't got anything to sign yet. What we've got so far is a mutual tariff reduction deal, which I guess can happen pretty quickly. We know that Trump unilaterally increased the tariffs so he can unilaterally reduce them, and presumably our government can do the same. I saw some comments noting the improved access for US beef into the British market, and people going, oh no, the hormone-fed beef. No. There's been no reduction in standards. This was confirmed by Douglas Alexander, government minister, in the House of Commons yesterday, where he got a good old moaning at by the speaker, but never mind. I know people were concerned when Trump said that the deal applied to all beef. It doesn't. Nor does it lower standards for other agri-products like the chlorinated chicken. Again, confirmed by the government in Parliament yesterday. And Trump knows this as well. His tariff munchkin Peter Navarro was later on trying to argue, but the British people would love it. All they have to do is taste the hormone-fed beef and the chlorinated chicken. They would absolutely love it. Let the market decide, he said. No. So the Americans know what this deal is so far. However, it's also pointed out on all sides that talks are still continuing on further details. What the deal does for the UK: it reduces tariffs on cars down to 10% from nearly 30%. That immediately helps save a load of jobs that were definitely going later this year if we didn't get this deal. It also gets rid of the tariffs on steel and aluminium, which is being hyped up, I noticed, in Britain. But I mean, that's really not that big a deal. Certainly not as big a deal as it is for cars. We do also get protection against future moves on pharmaceuticals. Trump hasn't yet hit these with tariffs, so at the moment it's not worth anything, but he has threatened to. Our export of pharmaceuticals to America is very important, so the deal means that if Trump does play silly buggers with these, which he might well do, we get preferential treatment. In return, America gets tariff reductions on a range of like agri-food products and so on, but only those of high enough standard to already be allowed in our market. Like, remember, America does produce high quality food as well. It's a rich country with a lot of very rich people living there. They don't want to eat the poisoned meat. That's just for the poor people. So this is just a tariff reduction on the good quality food. It just makes it cheaper. Obviously, British farming groups are not entirely happy about this, but the criticism from the NFU, the National Farmers Union, that was quite muted, I thought. I thought it was quite fair. They know their major problem would be undercutting standards like the Tories did, but that hasn't happened here. They did say they understood the need to give and take, but that farming has been consistently asked to take the hit for others during trade deals, and it can't continue. Now, I have some sympathy for that position, but it is limited. I would have more sympathy if rural communities had not themselves consistently supported Brexit. It's not getting to an argument about how many farmers. Rural communities voted Conservative in 2019, which means they allowed Brexit. And they accepted that it was at least a price worth paying for something else. So they accepted it, they supported it. If we'd still been in the EU, none of the issues they've raised would have happened, and they'd be enjoying much better trading opportunities. So although it's fair to say, yes, we cannot keep asking farmers to take the hit, it is also fair to say they asked for it. And it's also worth bearing in mind, quotas apply to these tariff reductions. So although Trump is happily telling his public how much tariffs have come down for exports to Britain, there are quotas, just like there are for British exports to America. For example, the reduction on tariffs for cars is for 100,000 of them. Another point to make, which is one I made earlier this week, but I couldn't be certain, but I did strongly suspect it. So I suggested that the deal will still mean worse trade with America than we had under Biden. Starmer basically confirmed that at the press conference, but he said it's important to compare it not with the past, but with yesterday, like the situation we had at the time, which is fine. Yes, sure. But it still demonstrates that America are absolutely not prepared to give us trade, which is even as good as we had at the start of the year. So measured according to the baseline of January the 1st, 2025, the Indian trade deal is slightly better. The EU deals will be loads better and the US deal will be worse. And this is also why the government are not going to prioritise deals with the US over the EU. It's not just that we trade much more with the EU than the US. That is the usual argument. It's because we can actually get more trade with the EU by doing deals. The US has offered us a gentler punch in the face. Although if you're thinking, so why did we agree to it? Well, because people's jobs are on the line. This deal will not boost jobs like the EU deals will, but it will protect them, which is important for those people. As well as agri-food standards, which have not been compromised, there were two other concerns ahead of the announcement: that the digital services tax would be reduced or eliminated for American tech giants, and that our online safety laws would be watered down when they actually need to be beefed up, if you pardon the pun. The government confirmed that neither of these things has changed, though I would say these are the areas to watch out for in the future. I would say not to worry about the food standards because we're chasing a big deal with the EU on agri-food, which will require us to align our standards with the EU, something the government have already said they're preparing to do. In fact, we know they are. They're passing legislation to do it. Now, the sooner it's confirmed, the better, but that has been Labour's top trade policy for years now. However, the digital services tax is just money. In terms of economics, if we can sacrifice some of it for a better return elsewhere, more jobs, and it's net good, not just for jobs, but tax revenues as well, then of course it's just money, right? Some people have an issue with it on principle, and I absolutely understand that, because it would represent already wealthy corporations getting out of what is, after all, a piss poor 2% tax. Should be way more. So ideally, we would avoid touching it ever. But I've already said, look, I'm happy to be pragmatic about this and sacrifice some or all of it if we get a better deal overall. You know, digital services tax is worth £1 billion a year, roughly, not even quite that. If we sacrifice some of it, do we get more back with it and with jobs as well? If we do, fine, that's more important. But for now, there's no changes, but it could be a bargaining chip later on. The one thing which we must not concede on is online safety. Again, for now, no changes, but we have to pay careful attention to that. The reason I was completely confident about no reduction to food standards, it's not out of some blind faith in the government doing the right thing. That would be ludicrous. It's because Labour cannot afford the unpopularity which comes with inviting unsafe food into the country, and the public know it's unsafe. And also it would completely scupper the EU deal, which is absolutely essential to boost growth. Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, was welcoming the US trade deal, but said what we really need is a big reduction in Brexit trade barriers with the EU. Now, he was careful to point out that he takes no view on Brexit itself. However, he said, if we want to boost trade, we need to reverse it. It's basically what he said. Labour governments do not remain in power when the economy is growing. The Tories do all the time. Labour never, ever have won an election from power with a failing economy. Zero doubt that the food standards will remain high. And yes, that could well scupper the larger deal in the future. Trump really wants us to lower our standards and it could pose trouble later on. This deal could still completely collapse in the future. Sure. But it's really this simple. Trump cannot possibly do as much damage to us out of spite than we'd do to ourselves accepting those terms. And Labour understand that as well, like from blue Labour right to the very pro-EU majority of the party. But online safety laws are different. Maintaining or strengthening those is not an essential part of anything Labour are definitely trying to achieve. They should be, because online harms are bad for political groups trying to make things better for people. They only help the charlatans. But although I'd like to think Labour see that, I do not know for certain they do. So I would definitely watch that one. So just to finalise, this is a tariff reduction deal, doesn't lower any standards. We're completely free to agree alignment with the EU for an agri-food agreement, which would be very good news, including for the British farmers who are none too impressed with the US deal. So when they say they can't keep taking the hit, well, the deal with the EU should actually help British farmers. The Tories are saying that the deal should have been more comprehensive, but more comprehensive means buying the poisoned meat and allowing mental health crisis-fueled hate online. So they can do one. The Tory press were falling over themselves to praise the deal, even though half of them were giving the credit to Brexit rather than Labour, you know, but praise is praise, which limits the Tories' ability to knock it. And by the way, remember that the deal is still a downgrade on our pre-Trump American trade. So if they want to credit Brexit with a deal that actually reduces our trade overall, be my guest. it represents a reduction in trade with America compared with under Biden. It's really that simple. Some Brexit benefit, that is. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.